The wife returned to pay respects to her late husband, only to witness a shocking scene. She never imagined that even after 10 years since her husband's passing, Hachiko, weighing 8 kilograms, was still waiting for her at the station entrance. Hachiko's eyes were distant, and he sat there, dirty, lacking the vigor he once had. Even the wife had moved on from her grief and started a new life, but Hachiko was still foolishly waiting. 10 years is a long time, and even people in love can't always remain faithful, but the dog did. The coffee vendor nearby couldn't help but turn away with tears. Perhaps only he knew what Hachiko had been through in those 10 years. At this moment, Hachiko recognized his mistress, but his eyes were evasive, afraid of missing anyone coming out of the station. The mistress hoped to wait for the next bus with the dog. She then hugged the dog tightly, memories of their first meeting flooding her mind. That night, the couple was enjoying a sweet moment in bed when the puppy suddenly licked her toes. This incident made her furious, and her husband, Parker, quickly explained the puppy's origin. Perhaps it was fate, as the puppy wandering at the station suddenly stopped in front of Parker. Seeing him clean and tidy, Parker guessed he wasn't a stray. So, he held him at the station, waiting for someone to claim him. But even after the last bus left, no one came for the dog. Parker had no choice but to take him to the station's management office, hoping the manager would keep him for a while until the owner came. However, the manager said they could only keep him for one night, and if no one claimed him, he would be sent to an animal shelter. Faced with the manager's coldness, Parker worried about the puppy's fate and decided to take the puppy home. On the way, Parker muttered to himself, expressing his fondness for the puppy. But when he reached home, he tiptoed to avoid his wife, settling the puppy in the downstairs study. He warned the puppy not to run around. Unexpectedly, before he could close the door, his wife came downstairs in a sexy nightgown, looking excited. She said, "I have a surprise for you," and Parker, with a wry smile, replied, "I have a surprise too." But before he could say anything, his wife eagerly dragged him upstairs. Meanwhile, the puppy in the study wasn't idle, wandering around and accidentally stepping on the piano keys. His wife heard something unusual downstairs, a sound. Parker lied, saying it must be the window with the razor. However, just as the two were enjoying their sweet moment, the puppy opened the door by itself and found their room. Actually, the wife doesn't dislike dogs, it's just that their lives are too short. She doesn't want to go through the sadness again. Parker understood her thoughts and concerns, so he immediately promised to find the puppy a new owner the next day, but for tonight, let it stay in the small cabin outside. After some hesitation, the wife reluctantly agreed. The small cabin was where Parker used to keep dogs, so it had everything the puppy needed. To make the little guy comfortable, Parker not only laid out a mat and covered it with a blanket but also found the old dog toys. Once everything was set, Parker turned off the light, but soon, he turned it back on because he worried the little guy might be afraid of the dark. But the puppy wasn't afraid of the dark. It was afraid of being abandoned. So, after Parker closed the door and left, it watched the departing figure through the gap, whimpering softly in disappointment. The next day, the daughter was overjoyed to see the puppy and urged her father to adopt it. However, the mother had already printed a lost and found notice with the puppy's photo on it. No matter how much the father and daughter pleaded, it was to no avail. Helplessly, Parker put the little guy in a backpack and took it to the animal shelter. The staff said they could take it in, but only for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, if no one adopted it, it would be dealt with. Hearing this, Parker felt it was more reliable to find the puppy a new owner himself. Then, he found a shop owner who liked small animals. When she saw the puppy's cute appearance, she immediately adored it. However, her cat was full of hostility towards the puppy. With no other choice, Parker posted lost and found notices everywhere and asked everyone he met if they wanted a dog. He even asked the coffee vendor at the train station. The vendor jokingly replied that he preferred cash and then listed all the inconveniences of having a dog. Unwilling to give up, Parker returned to the station to ask the manager if anyone was looking for a dog. The answer disappointed him again. Despite this, he insisted the manager help post the lost and found notice. Then, ignoring the manager's warning about not bringing dogs on the train, he secretly put the puppy in his bag and boarded the train. He even split his breakfast in two and, when the person next to him wasn't looking, secretly fed it to the puppy. The puppy ate happily, making sounds of contentment. To avoid drawing attention and being reported by others, Parker had to bark like a dog himself to cover up. Later, the puppy followed Parker to the classroom, where it roamed freely under the feet of dancing students. When tired, it lay down nearby. Parker asked each student if they wanted to adopt the dog, but all efforts were in vain. He carried a dog cage with a torn piece of paper left behind. The paper seemed to hold the puppy's secret. It turned out that it wasn't an ordinary dog but a Japanese Akita, symbolizing luck and loyalty. The collar around its neck had the number 8, which might be its name, Bako. When Parker asked his old friend in Japan if he wanted to adopt the dog, The friend cryptically told him that perhaps the puppy had already made its own choice. His friend's words gave Parker a mysterious strength deep inside. While chatting with his wife at home, Parker inadvertently called out Bako's name. His wife immediately sensed something was off because once an owner names a puppy, it usually means they're ready to adopt it. Parker quickly clarified that he had no such intention. However, as the couple argued, Bako suddenly disappeared. After searching, they found Bako had chewed up a model that took his wife months to make. She was furious and banned Bako from entering the house again. That night, through the door crack, Bako saw Parker arguing with his wife. Bako seemed to realize his mistake and lay quietly in the doghouse without making a sound. Feeling the sudden change in weather, Parker went to the doghouse and decided to bring Bako inside. Having just argued with his wife, Parker didn't dare go upstairs. Bored, he looked up information about Akitas online and discovered that this breed has been around for over 4,000 years. They were among the first companions of humans. To avoid his wife noticing anything unusual, Parker settled Bako and prepared to return to the bedroom. But Bako wouldn't let him leave, so he stayed to watch a game with Bako. The man and the dog shared a bucket of popcorn, looking harmonious and warm, when the TV sound woke his wife. She found Parker asleep on the sofa with Bako playfully on him. She helplessly tried to turn off the TV, but Bako licked her fingers in a friendly manner. However, this gesture didn't sway her feelings. At this moment, Parker was also awakened by their commotion. He quickly hugged little Bako, apologizing repeatedly. Seeing her husband's cautious demeanor, his wife reluctantly agreed to let Bako stay in the room for another night. The next day, Parker taught little Bako how to play the ball cutting game. He believed that since Akita dogs are so smart, this game, which even a husky can learn, would be a piece of cake for little Bako. But Bako was confused and uncooperative. Parker, being strong, wasn't angry or impatient. Instead, he patiently taught him. He even lay on the ground himself to demonstrate. Meanwhile, inside the house, his wife received a call from someone who saw the notice and wanted to adopt Hachiko. Just as she happily took out pen and paper to jot down the contact information, she looked up and saw her husband outside, even happier. It had been a long time since she had seen Parker so childlike. Soon after, their daughter excitedly joined in, as if Hachi was already a part of the family. This is what a truly happy family looks like. The wife wasn't heartless, and the ice in her heart slowly began to melt. So, she told the person on the phone, "Sorry, that dog has already been adopted." Then she decisively hung up the phone. And so, Hachiko officially became a member of the family. As time passed with love and care, the once gloomy little guy quickly turned into a handsome young dog with a lush coat. However, as he grew older, Bako became more clingy. Every time Parker left for work, Bako would reluctantly lie at the door, watching him go. One day, unable to bear the loneliness, he dug a small hole in the backyard and crawled out. Just as Parker boarded the train, he saw Bako appear on the platform. He couldn't believe his eyes, even more so that Hachiko could find the station on his own. After a brief moment of affection, Parker told him to hurry back home. But Hachiko kept following him, unwilling to leave. Helplessly, Parker indulgently took him back home and filled up the hole he had dug to escape. Before leaving, Parker warned him not to follow again. Hachiko, lacking self-control, no longer had the urge to escape. Bored and idle in the yard all day, he suddenly heard the train's whistle as it arrived at the station, realizing it might be Parker returning. So, he quickly jumped out of the yard, then ran all the way to the station, sitting on the flower bed at the entrance, waiting for Parker to appear. Sure enough, before long, Parker walked out through that door. Bagon, strong and robust, immediately rushed over with enthusiasm. Parker thought he had been waiting here all day, or perhaps his wife had brought him along. But the uncle selling coffee nearby said he had run over by himself just 2 minutes ago. Parker once again felt Bagon's intelligence. Seeing all this, the train manager couldn't help but regret missing out on such a loyal companion. The next day, Parker went to work, still not wanting Bagon to follow. But seeing those pitiful eyes, he finally softened. So, from then on, every day Parker traveled, he had Bagon as his guardian. Like a loyal guard, he respectfully stayed by his side. But sometimes, he would also play joyfully with him. When they reached the station, Parker gave the command for Bagon to go back. Bagon obediently turned back. On the way back, he would even get some delicious treats from the deli owner. In the afternoon, he would wait at the flower bed, and in the crowd, he could accurately spot Parker, then rush over and jump into his arms. This moment was Bagon's happiest, and Parker, through this enthusiasm, washed away a whole day's work fatigue. After that, Bagon picking up Parker became a habit. Whether in extreme cold or heat, or in wind, frost, rain, or snow, he always arrived at the station's flower bed before 5 o'clock, waiting. Gradually, the people around also got to know him. The silhouette of the man and the dog became a beautiful sight. But that day, after work, Parker didn't see Bagon's figure. He anxiously searched everywhere, calling out, even going to his wife's workplace, but still couldn't find any trace of Bagon. It wasn't until he got home that he was surprised to find Bagon blocked at the door by a skunk, afraid to go out. Parker, strong and robust, immediately took out a cardboard box and carefully covered the skunk. But when he signaled Bagon to run, Bagon accidentally knocked him and the box over. Then, the startled skunk sprayed him with its stinky liquid. So, when his wife came home from work, she saw the man and the dog huddled in the bathtub taking a tomato bath. But no matter how many times they washed, they still emitted a strong odor. So that night, they were sent to sleep in the living room by his disgusted wife. Since having Bagon's company, Parker's family life not only became more fun but also filled with more surprises and happiness. One day, Parker's daughter brought her boyfriend home. To liven up the atmosphere, the boyfriend went to the yard to play fetch with Bagon. But no matter how hard he tried, Mr. Ba remained indifferent. Parker, being strong, quickly explained that he never picks up balls, but he wasn't quite sure why. After hearing this, her boyfriend could only go pick it up himself. Unexpectedly, he found a silver dollar underfoot. Mr. Ba thought this boy was silly and never imagined he would become Parker's son-in-law. Later, Parker specifically asked his Japanese friend about Mr. Ba not picking up balls. His friend explained that Akita dogs are different from other dogs. They never actively try to please humans. If they do, there must be some special reason. After hearing his friend's explanation, Parker didn't think much of it. Until one day, as usual, he took Mr. Ba to the station. Mr. Ba, who had never attacked Parker, suddenly started barking wildly and even spun in circles. Parker didn't understand what he meant, so he just hugged and comforted him for a while. But when he was about to leave again, Mr. Ba, who usually couldn't wait to follow, unusually stayed still. Seeing that he was about to miss his train to work, Parker didn't think much and left the house. Mr. Ba, still strong, didn't immediately follow but turned back to the cabin and brought out the tennis ball he never cared to play with. Only then did he push open the door and chase after him. When Parker saw Mr. Ba catching up, his previously disappointed face lit up with a smile. But facing Mr. Ba, who was unusually playing the ball-fetching game, he didn't find it strange. Instead, he praised him repeatedly and even showed off to the people around. Completely forgetting his friend's previous words. Eventually, Parker entered the station, while Mr. Ba stood there, unwilling to watch the train slowly disappear. This time, he didn't go home as usual but sat by the flower bed, waiting until 5 in the afternoon. But the familiar figure he expected never walked out of that door. Until late at night, even the uncle selling coffee had closed up shop. He still didn't see the person he was waiting for. Later, Parker's son-in-law took him home. That night, Mr. Ba stayed in his cabin, watching the scene in the opposite room through a crack. Although it was still brightly lit, the usual laughter was gone, replaced by endless sadness and crying. It turned out that during the day, Parker, while teaching, didn't forget to place the tennis ball by the piano and even shared Mr. Ba's story. Suddenly feeling unwell, he planned to rest for a while, but unexpectedly, when he got up again, he suddenly collapsed. Since then, he never got up again. Bagong didn't know what a heart attack was, or even what death was. He only knew that his agreement with his owner was to meet at the station after work. So, while the family attended Parker's funeral to mourn their lost loved one, Bagong arrived at the station as usual before 5 o'clock, then sat in his usual spot, waiting for Parker to return. Late at night, as snowflakes began to fall from the sky, Bagong remained motionless at the entrance. The station manager, feeling sorry for him, told him, "You don't have to wait anymore. He won't be coming back." But upon seeing Bagong's determined eyes, he instantly understood that no one could shake his loyalty. Later, the wife moved away from this place of sorrow, and Bagong was taken to live with the daughter and son-in-law in their new home. Although the new home was beautiful and the small house was comfortable, Bagong was listless and dispirited every day because the most familiar face was missing from his world. So, one day, taking advantage of the son-in-law opening the door to return from shopping, Bagong dashed out of the house. No matter how the son-in-law chased after him, he refused to stop moving forward. Afterward, he ran through the snow-covered woods, across the icy cold tracks, and sprinted all the way towards home. When tired, he rested under an old car, and upon waking, continued his journey. Finally, after passing through the bustling city, he arrived at that familiar home, but it was no longer the same scene, and the owner had changed to unfamiliar strangers. Yet she refused to give up hope. She then went to the train station, lying on the flower bed facing the exit. Even when someone offered American treats, she remained unmoved, as she had to keep an eye on the exit, fearing she might miss the most familiar person. However, soon, the daughter and son-in-law drove over to find her. After some sincere persuasion, they took her back home again. But back home, Bagong began to refuse food. The daughter comforted him, saying, "I miss him just as much as you do, and I think of him all the time." But before she could finish, The sound of a train whistle caught Bagong's attention again. He went to the fence, looking eagerly. If longing had a sound, it would be deafening at this moment. The daughter understood Bagong's thoughts. So, holding back tears, she said, "If you want to leave, I respect your decision." After saying that, she opened the door without hesitation. Bagong then carefully licked her fingers before dashing off to the train station entrance again. Waiting for the face that will never appear again, the old man buying coffee wasn't surprised or shocked when he saw Hachiko, because he thought the snow-covered flower bed might be the best resting place for Hachiko. Suddenly, a small white dog came over. Hachiko really wanted to play with him, but it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and he couldn't leave, so he just watched as the playmate was called away by his owner. In the days that followed, Hachiko continued to appear and wait every day. When he was hungry, he would go to nearby shops to beg for food, and when it was late and no one was around, he would return to the abandoned tracks to rest. Day after day, Hachiko waited and hoped, and gradually his loyalty sparked widespread discussion, attracting the attention of a journalist. The journalist began interviewing people familiar with Hachiko and learned about the deep bond between Hachiko and Parker. Soon, Hachiko's story was reported by the media, and his loyalty touched people from all walks of life. People started sending money and food for him, but the station manager in charge of handling it kept everything for himself, not using any of it for Hachiko. Later, Parker's Japanese friend saw the report and traveled a long way to visit Hachiko. At that time, the old man selling coffee happened to be there to give Hachiko some food. The friend suggested providing some funds for dog care, in case Hachiko got sick and needed treatment. But the old man politely declined his offer, as the locals all loved Hachiko and were willing to contribute to caring for this extraordinary stray dog. After the old man left, the friend reminisced with Hachiko about the past, saying, "I miss Parker just like you do, but he will never come back." However, if you want to wait, then keep waiting, because the friend knew that for an Akita dog, once they decide on something, they won't change. Perhaps spending the rest of his life waiting here is what gives Hachiko the motivation to keep going. Before leaving, the friend wished Hachiko health and safety. From then on, Hachiko continued to wait at the flower bed, from the vibrant early spring to the bleak winter. No matter how time passed or seasons changed, Hachiko always stayed at the flower bed by the station entrance. On this day, the wife specially traveled from afar to attend Parker's 10-year memorial, and at the cemetery, she unexpectedly met Parker's Japanese friend. The friend sighed, "Time is unbearable to count, and old friends are not as they were. It feels like a fleeting year has passed into 10 autumns." When the two finished commemorating and arrived at the train station, they witnessed a shocking scene. On the street, a stray dog with matted fur and an old, tired body is walking towards the train station. This is Hachiko, who has been waiting at the station for 10 years. Despite his difficulty moving and his unsteady steps, he still manages to climb onto the flower bed and sits down facing the station entrance. When his wife saw him, she quickly ran over, and after confirming it was Hachiko, she hugged him and cried. He never imagined that a dog would wait for its owner for 10 years, rain or shine. The coffee shop owner nearby couldn't help but turn away to wipe his eyes. After some time, snowflakes began to fall from the sky again. Inside the house, the wife and grandson were flipping through a photo album, telling the story of Parker and Hachiko. On a cold, snowy night, Hachiko seemed to hear the sound of a train approaching the station again. Then, he struggled to get up and walked unsteadily towards the station. The snow on Christmas Eve was falling gently, but the joy of the world no longer concerned Hachiko. All that was left for him was countless memories and endless sorrow and grief. Not long after, Hachiko closed his eyes, unable to hold on any longer. In a daze, the professor's affection flashed before him like a carousel. In our lives, we may meet many people, but in Hachiko's short life, Parker was his everything. In a trance, Hachiko seemed to return to the night he met Parker, under the warm yellow light, with his owner's familiar smiling face. Hachiko finally jumped into his owner's warm embrace once more. Then, Hachiko closed his eyes as he wished. 10 years of waiting had transformed into a staircase leading to heaven. At the end of the staircase, Hachiko would meet his owner again. Later, Parker's grandson grew up, and after learning about this touching story, he not only shared Hachiko's story with his classmates but also adopted a puppy and named it Hachiko. Life seemed to enter another cycle. The story of Hachi, A Dog's Tale, was directed by Lasse Hallström and starred Richard Gere, released in 2010 as a drama film. The film is based on a true story. The real Hachiko was born in Japan in 1923. After his owner, Hidezaburo Ueno, passed away, he waited at Shibuya Station for nearly 10 years until he died on March 8, 1935. During that time, to honor Hachiko's loyalty, a bronze statue of him was erected at Shibuya Station. Today, it has become a famous landmark and tourist attraction in Japan. In the 12 years of Hachiko's life, the actual time spent with his owner was only a brief 2 years. Yet, It was these 2 years of companionship that led Hachiko to wait and watch for nearly a decade after his owner's death, undeterred by any weather. In 2 years, humans might have ended several intimate relationships. In 10 years, humans might have long forgotten that person from the past. But for a dog, even a short time together is remembered and cherished for a lifetime. Once they choose a person, whether that person is rich or poor, sick or healthy, they remain loyal until death. In this fast-paced society, we may have become accustomed to fast food-style love and friendship, forgetting that pure and persistent emotion. But the reason we are repeatedly moved by Hachiko's story is because deep down, we still yearn for and pursue this kind of emotion. We often ponder what love truly is, and love is not just the sweetness of being together, but also the steadfastness and waiting after parting. Yet often, we find various reasons to persuade ourselves to give up on loyalty to love and loved ones, indulging in desires, and even justifying it as being true to ourselves, blaming it on the restlessness of society. Loyalty should be a basic rule everyone follows, but now it has become a rare and admirable trait. Jimmy wrote in his photo album, "I always hope someone is waiting for me somewhere." You also always hope someone is waiting for you somewhere, right? We all want to be the one who is waited for, but rarely consider that few are willing to wait, as waiting often feels bitter and tortuous, requiring endurance of loneliness and the possibility of no outcome. But isn't having someone to wait for also a sign of hope? How many people don't even have someone to wait for, never experiencing the excitement and tension of waiting? Waiting isn't always passive. It can be an active anticipation, a beautiful longing for the future. May you and I, from this moment on, both say or hear that firm phrase, "I will wait for you." That's all for today's movie sharing. Feel free to like, comment, and share. Looking forward to our next meeting.